Now joining the One Star Recruits podcast, we have Indiana native, Hoosier alum, father of three, current University of Nevada head basketball coach, and really the absolute sharpest dresser in the Mountain West Conference, Steve Alford. Welcome to the show, Coach, and thanks for jumping on with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course. This podcast is named One Star Recruits, and you were anything but that as a player. Mr. Basketball, Indiana, 1983. But you have guys like your oldest son Corey, who walked on for you at both New Mexico and UCLA. He was a solid high school player, but a lot of this is about work ethic and perseverance. Do you believe that any kid can become a great basketball player if they're willing to work hard enough?
Yeah, obviously there's different levels of greatness and kind of what you define as greatness, and that's usually I define it as the individual, just being as good as you can possibly be. And in Corey's instance, he wanted to be a part of a big program. My brother was a little bit like that coming out of high school, and so it's really about what path you want to take. He knew he always wanted to coach, so walking on at New Mexico, maybe getting to play later in his career, obviously making the move to UCLA and walking on and probably knowing he's not going to play very much there. That's the route he wanted to take to get into coaching. And now at 27, he's the head basketball coach at Huntington University in Indiana. So that path worked for him. He could have went smaller, and the path could have worked as well. But it's really, I think it's just up to the individual what they're wanting to do. But regardless of what path you take, there's no substitute for how hard you work at a trait that you're trying to be great in. It's not just, I think so many kids today just think it's seventh grade basketball, freshman basketball, high school basketball, AAU basketball, and I go on to college and play. I go on to the NBA and play. Each step you take gets harder and harder. So it's a matter of what kind of work you put into it is what you're going to benefit from.
Man. Perfect. And speaking of putting in work, I was in research for this article. I read stories that as a toddler, you used to just take balls in the house and shoot them in baskets. And I'm a father of two very young sons. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And just yesterday, researching for this interview, I pulled out a basket of balls in our house and I had them shoot in the trash can, and they lasted a couple minutes, but speaking of that, what advice do you have for new dads in regards to both life and in sports? Raising kids growing up in sports.
Yeah, I think the thing I did as a youngster is, and my mom and dad were terrific in helping me, is I created a great imagination of the game. Like you're talking about trash cans, something that I can remember doing like it was yesterday, taking a Pringles can and emptying a Pringles can out and taking ping pong balls. And I started the game by shooting ping pong balls into a Pringles can, and I would put it up against a sliding glass door so I'd have a bank, and it was a little bit easier. And then I'd start moving out away from the window to where now you actually had to swish the ping pong ball in the Pringles can. And then I what evolved out of that was coloring each ping pong ball. You could actually go to the store as I got a little bit older and you could get colored ping pong balls. And the reason why I'm talking about the imagination there is like a blue one ended up being the New York Knicks, a green one ended up being the Boston Celtics, a yellow one ended up being the Los Angeles Lakers. And so I would play games with myself of, I'm learning touch. And it just so happened I was never a great gifted athlete. I never played the game above the rim, but I made a living out of this game because I had touch. I understood how to play the game, but then I think I had a really good touch and a good feel. And I'm not saying the Pringles and all that had, but playing ping pong, shooting pool, playing wiffle ball in the neighborhood. There are not a lot of kids growing up today playing outside games because of the phone and the technology and everything's done inside. So I just tried to get as creative as I possibly could as a young person. But part of that creativity is, like you said, your kids lasted for a little bit. You got to make it to where it's fun. Like I think a lot of dads in particular, when they want their sons to grow up playing the game, make the mistake of not putting them on a 6-foot goal and then an 8-foot goal. My dad started a biddy ball league in Martinsville, Indiana when I was in first grade to fourth grade. And that biddy ball league was played on 8-foot goals. So as a first through fourth grade, you made baskets. You don't, and I don't mean to diminish soccer, but I don't want to do something for 2.5 hours and we end in a 0-0 tie. That's just not my makeup. My
Right.
makeup is, where's the points? And so Dad, by doing things on 8-foot goal and playing with what is now the girls' ball. When I grew up, we didn't have a girls' ball, but it's now the size of the girls' ball. I was able to dribble better. I was able to shoot better. I was able to score better. So I fell in love with the game at an early age, and I stayed with it. And I think that's the key, is making sure sons and daughters that you have that you want to play the game, they got to want to play it, but they're only going to stick with it if they're having fun with it and having success with it.
Amen, Coach. They got to get buckets at the end of the day. So Rip,
At the
tonight,
end of the day, it's about buckets.
get buckets. Rip, get those Pringles cans out. Have Wes start dunking. Get the ball in the hoop, and let's go.
Yep. Yep.
Well, Coach, this is
I'm on it.
and I've got a couple of questions for you. I've been fascinated with any father-son relationship because that where the son plays for the father, because my dad coached me my whole life, and I always wanted to know, especially growing up now, how was he able to navigate that, and when did he decide when to come hard at me and when not to? Because I feel like he coached me the hardest. And do you have a back and forth with yourself a lot, coaching your kids on how hard do you go with them and when to kind of lay off? Or
Yeah, I feel blessed because I was a coach's kid. So, but I always tell people I was a coach's kid in high school, even though Indiana, and I played in a one class era. There's a lot of attention given to Indiana high school basketball. It's very different than being a coach's kid at UCLA. And so I think I just learned early on of dealing with my dad, and my dad he's been a tremendous mentor in my life, and to this day still is. And I can just reflect back of all the great times. Like, we weren't able to do basketball on Sundays at Newcastle or in the state of Indiana. So Monday through Saturday, he was coach. And then on Sundays, he did a great job of, after church, taking my brother and I back to the gym. And then it had nothing to do with coaching. It had nothing to do with what happened in the previous game or games that week. It had to do with just being dad, having some fun in the gym with just father-son time. And he was able to separate the dad hat and the coach hat with great balance. And I wanted to learn that. And as my boys ended up wanting to play, I say to this day, my daughter ended up not playing, but naturally, I've always told her, I said, you had the most gifted Alford touch, because she just picks up a ball and shoots it the way you're supposed to shoot it. The boys had to evolve over time with that. But I wanted them to have fun, and I wanted them, they came to practices, so they saw the intensity at a young age. But I always at home, I wanted them to see dad, because being at Iowa or being at New Mexico or UCLA when they were growing up, Southwest Missouri State, they saw the pressures and they saw the intensity, and I had to relax some of that so that they knew that, this game's still about fun and you can make mistakes and those type of things. But both Corey and Bryce were incredible to coach, because I think first and foremost, they were incredible teammates. It's hard to be a coach's kid if you're not a teammate. If you don't serve your teammates, if you don't care about your teammates, I think it's really hard to be a coach's kid.
it is, but on the other end, you come out stronger. I'm sure Bryce and Corey would attest. But it seems like you found a great balance, which is nice. And switching gears to your new in Reno, where you are, you've got a very young team, and so it's like, where do we start here? I mean, they are. I think you made a quote that the Phoenix Suns were, you're about older than them. So what are you doing right now to get them prepared for the season? I know it's really hard. To Zoom workouts are the thing. What are you doing with these kids?
Yeah, we're in totally different times. We've got five freshmen on campus, and when you got to go into quarantine and do the things that are happening now, that's nothing we've ever lived as coaches and or players. So now kids are going off to college. Usually we make a point that when they come off to college, we're in contact with them as much as possible. And obviously we got rules of how long we can be on the court. It's not so much the court time. It's just, making sure they're coming by the office, making sure they're having dialogue with us, because they're going away from home for the first time. And now we're in an era where they're going away from the first time. We can't have contact. Not only can we not have contact on the court, but they're in quarantine and they're going through all this stuff. And so, we're waiting to see. Obviously July 20th has been a date, and we hope that sticks to where we can get on the court and be with our guys. And because I think key to our program has always been development. You see kids as freshmen, and each year goes by, I think our players get better, and it's because of how much time we invest in film and on the court. and that's been taken away because of the virus, obviously. And so for April, May, June, we haven't had that development period. So we're hoping by next week, when the 20th hits, we can kind of hit that ground running, and hopefully things stay on pace from there. But it's very, very different. We got 5 freshmen and I think 5 sophomores. So we're an extremely young basketball team, an inexperienced team. So the more contact we can get with them, the better.
Well, this is a good challenge you put yourself up to, because you're one of the best development coaches in the game historically. So we'll see what you got here, Coach. I believe in you. I'm going to be rooting for that Wolfpack.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question. I always wondered if coaches keep in touch with players once they go to the league, or they go, 10 years down, maybe you're playing like your son Bundesliga he was playing last year. But guys like Lonzo specifically, who really played his best ball under you, you really got him going. And he kind of fell off in the last 30 games. Coach Gentry pulled into that, Coach Alford, and he's got that confidence back. And have you kept in touch with Lonzo? And is there anything you've noticed in Lonzo's game where he's really starting to play UCLA basketball and taking confidence?
Yeah, we stay in contact with all of our guys, and Lonzo, I think he's going to be special. He's already, trying to meet expectations is one thing. Sometimes those are, and when you live in LA, those things get really blown up big.
Oh, yeah.
So, he's getting ready to start his 3rd, 4th year in the NBA. So you're successful if you can make it to that level. And then obviously Lonzo wants to be one of the greatest. I think he's still got the opportunity to do that because he's incredibly gifted. I think where his gift is, he's a great teammate. He's really skilled. He's got a really high basketball IQ. And he seems to be in a system now with New Orleans that allows him to do the things that he needs to do. And I think he is building confidence, and he's a much better shooter than what he's shown. And I think that's going to continue to improve. But his ability at his skill level and his knowledge as a point guard is at a high level. And I think his best basketball is still ahead of him.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it, Coach. Thank you.
Love the hat.
Hey, Coach, just
Absolutely. November 9th, Augusta.
Just a couple more things before we let you go here. You just talked about the coach and player relationship. I know you have a really great relationship with Coach Knight that you played for at Indiana to this day. And just to speak on Indiana basketball for a second, statewide. I mean, I'm looking up some stats here. The Lawler Event Center at the University of Nevada campus holds about 1,500 people. Your high school gym in Newcastle held 9,300 people. I mean, you live that Indiana basketball experience, but for people who haven't lived that, can you just talk about what it's like? I mean, so much of basketball history is rooted in Indiana.
Yeah, when I grew up, unfortunately, I grew up in an era where we had one class. We didn't have 4 or 5 state champions. We kind of grew up in an era now where everybody gets on the track and you run, and then when you cross the finish line, everybody gets blue ribbons. I grew up in an era where you actually had to beat everybody to get a blue ribbon. And so I love that era that I was in, and the people that played before me in one class basketball that taught me the value of competing. And if you didn't win, get back in the gym and work harder. And so I grew up in an era that the easiest way to explain it to you is that on a Friday night, my senior year, James Blackman, who would later go to Kentucky, we were Indiana All-Star brothers together. We played Marion on a Friday night in front of 10,000 people in the field house, Newcastle field house. On Saturday night, Scott Hicks in Indianapolis Cathedral. Scotty ended up having a great career at Notre Dame, and he was an Indiana All-Star brother of mine as well. We had another 10,000. So in one weekend at the Newcastle Fieldhouse, wow, we played in front of 20,000 people. Most high school kids will go through their entire 4-year high school career and not come close to playing in front of 20,000 people. And we did that in one weekend. So it was just a very special time. Love the coaches, love the friendships I made with teammates and opponents that we stay in contact to this day. It was just a very special era of basketball. And obviously getting back to Coach Knight, I had 2 goals: play for my father, play for Coach Knight. And these are 2 guys that have been mentors of mine, not just in basketball, but in life. And, Coach Knight came in my home and he promised me, he only promised me 3 or 4 things. He said I'd have a chance to play with great teammates, which I did. We'd have a chance to play for championships, which I did. I'd get my degree in 4 years, which I did. And I'd have a friend for life in him, which I have. And so, I learned that now in coaching that, keep things simple, but promise the things that really matter to a student athlete. And Coach Knight did that, and he made me better because of it.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, your story is really an amazing one. Just going back to the beginning, and just to close it out here, we do a rapid fire segment with each guest every week, and I just wanted to, you've made 6 stops as a collegiate head coach, and I just want to ask you kind of a quick hit question about each of those cities and take you back a little bit here and jog your memory in just a couple of them here. So let's start with Manchester College. Let's go best thing on the menu at the Main View Inn in North Manchester, Indiana.
Grilled tenderloin.
I know you've eaten there before. Perfect. Grilled tenderloin. Can't go wrong with that. All right, moving on. Southwest Missouri State. Springfield, Missouri was named by Forbes as America's wildest weather city. What was the craziest weather you experienced during your 4 years in Springfield?
Yeah, I don't remember. I wouldn't say that would be true. But I can't remember really any bad weather there. I mean, you got Table Rock to the south and Branson. You got Lake the Ozarks to the north. To me, that was a special place to live in a lot of ways, and great golf courses and people.
Okay. Yeah, I think Iowa was where you went through the tornadoes, right? In the 2006.
Iowa, there's much more weather in Iowa. As we call it, when that hawk flies, it gets pretty cold in Iowa. But again, a terrific stop. That's been my longest stop, and it was where I grew a lot as a person and as a coach. And like all my stops, had some great players. Glenn Worley played for me, and he's joining my staff. Actually, his first days today. But a lot of special memories there as well.
Okay, and then on to New Mexico. Thumbs up or thumbs down on the famous green chili burritos in Albuquerque?
Well, I learned from my 6 years in New Mexico, it's both red and green. It's always about Christmas, so you don't select just red or green. So I love green chili cheeseburgers to this day. That's still a favorite of mine. I had no idea what that was until I moved to Albuquerque, and it's still if I had to have a hamburger, I want green chili on it. So I got addicted to that pretty quickly.
Boom.
So green on the hamburger and red on the burrito, or?
Yes.
There you go.
Sauces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Los Angeles at UCLA. Better freeway, the 101 or the 405?
I'll take the 101 because it gets me to my house in Calabasas. But you're talking about two of the most congested freeways in our country. But 405 definitely trumps the 101 on a daily basis as far as congestion.
We tried to phrase that optimistically.
Yeah, we're down.
Yeah, hard to keep it tight.
We're down here, so we're dealing with that.
Yeah, it's hard to get to places on time if you're dealing with those two intersections.
Oh yeah. Okay, and last one. You haven't been in Reno long, but your favorite thing about the city so far?
Yeah, my favorite thing's definitely the people. This is a great place to live. We're 25 minutes, 30 minutes from Tahoe. We're in the midst of the Sierras. It's a beautiful place to live with great people. So we've really enjoyed our first year here as we start to kind of get in the trenches and get our program established. We've been very impressed with the people, and obviously being in the high desert, the climate's spectacular.
And if anyone watched that golf tournament,
awesome.
The celebrity challenge yesterday at Tahoe looked beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it doesn't get any better than Tahoe.
Yeah, so enjoy, Coach.
Yeah, I sure will. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll be following you this year. We appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.